Welcome to Weight Loss and Wellness for Real, the podcast where people like you get the practical solutions and support you need to permanently lose the physical and mental weight so you can feel better and live the life you really want to live in the body and mind you really want to be living in. If you're looking to overcome your stress eating, overeating, binging behaviors, and move to a place of food and body freedom, as well as find more meaning and more moments of joy in life, you are in the right place. Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. I do have a special guest that I'm talking to today whose name is Kush Khandelwal, and he runs the show Ageless Athlete, the podcast Ageless Athlete. And he and I connected through some mutual friends, and I started listening to his podcast and really, really enjoy it. And I know all of you as my listeners would enjoy it as well. And so I wanted to have him on the show to talk about just his journey into movement and as he ages, what he is doing about trying to optimize some of the abilities to stay active as he ages, as well as some of the practical strategies he uses. And also, we talk a lot about injury in this episode. So if you are someone who is quite active and have experienced injury, we talk about managing that on a physical level, but well as a mental and emotional one as well. He has a really inspiring story. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. Before we get started, just a reminder, head over to my website. It is a brand new website. It's been all rebranded, upgraded, all the things. And from there, you can directly sign up for my free monthly newsletter on all things well-being. It's always tips and tricks and practical strategies on things you can start to implement right away to feel better, have more energy, help you optimize physically. And then I always include a high protein recipe and links to discount codes on products that support the show. So make sure you head over to that website. Just scroll to the bottom of any page, and that's where you can sign up. That is also through that email list is where I send out when I'm first releasing online courses. I have some new ones out there. So you can go to the website and read all about those and find out about those if you're interested in doing an online course. Online courses are kind of cool because for your value, they are what would we say, less expensive than working one-on-one with a coach. And I really did put a lot of detail into all of my courses and really tried to focus on including the most helpful, practical, actionable strategies. Anyway, I have a few of them. Go to my website, heatherheynen.com. You can check them out from there. Okay, let's get on with the show. All right. Well, as you all heard, I do have Kush here. He started a podcast I love called The Ageless Athlete. And I know many of you who listen to this show would also really enjoy his show. It's inspiring and comes with, I would say, lots of practical knowledge from seasoned athletes who continue to thrive in their sport and their health. So, Kush, thank you for being here. Could you maybe start out just telling us a little bit more information about you, your journey here to the United States, maybe a little background on how you got into climbing and surfing?
Heather, thanks for having me on your
You bet.
podcast this morning, my time.
Yes,
And so this could be a long-winded answer, so feel
that's
free
okay.
to cut me off.
Okay.
Yes, I live in the US now. I have been here since 99. I have been in San Francisco since 2006. So,
Okay. Yeah.
as my mom likes to remind me, I've been in San Francisco now longer than I have lived in any city. Before the US, I was mostly growing up in India. Came to the US to go to grad school in the East Coast. And really, my drive to come to the US was inspired both, this is the land of opportunity, so to speak. But I also wanted to explore the beautiful world outside India and I spoke English, and it was an easier place to go than, let's say, France.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
And I came here, and I had been exposed to the mountains as a child. I was lucky that my parents took me and my brother to the Himalayas most summers for backpacking trips or even sightseeing, and that instilled an early love. And took that to do some mountaineering in India as a teenager. Came back here to the US to learn how to rock climb and get more into the technical side of things. And yeah, I have been lucky to have climbed in the US and overseas in some beautiful places for the last 20 odd years.
Yeah.
And then surfing happened because once I moved to San Francisco, the driving to Yosemite and some of these other places was a long 10-hour, 8-hour commute round trip, while the ocean beckoned being only 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
And I love exploring new things. So a friend took me surfing for the first time. Not a natural sea creature. I grew up in a landlocked city, but I was amazed at the wonder and the beauty that was just besides me. And yeah, I've been in surfing and climbing, and I'm pretty average at both in most respects, but I love them immensely. They have completely transformed my life. They have taught me so many things and also opened many doors, including this podcast, Ageless Athlete, which taps into stories of surfers, climbers, runners, all these people who thrive in the beautiful outdoors.
Yeah, I love that. Do you find any similarities between climbing and surfing?
Well, right away, they both take place in the beautiful natural world.
Yes.
I would say that's key.
Yeah.
The second is, I think in some ways, I like to call them lifestyle sports.
Yeah.
Where they require, to some degree, being able to adapt one's lifestyle to either go climb in beautiful places far away or to adapt to the whims and mercies of the ocean. I would say that's second. And maybe one other thing could be that often one is not competing with others.
Yeah.
As
It's kind of a
compared
solo sport.
Yeah, as compared to many more mainstream sports, whether group sports or individual sports. Here, I think the yardstick is just oneself. How I surf today, I only have myself to compare to, my last wave, my last session, the last swell. So I would say those could be some key highlights.
Yeah. I've done tiny bit of surf. I've done a lot of climbing, tiny bit of surfing. And I've found there's all those things you said are so true. And then also there's some similarity in there's a very almost singular perspective in both of them that I find. So, I'm sure you've experienced this climbing and surfing because you are solo, but you have to be so in the moment with both of them, which maybe is lots of sports. But I do find with those two, it's like this very singular perspective that you get while you are engaging in both of those sports. You have to be very in the moment, I would say.
I certainly relish the flow state that I find.
Yeah.
One other thing worth highlighting could be where, both of these sports, but also some others like, let's say, mountain biking.
Yeah, I was thinking that one too.
Yeah, or it could be running, trail running, could be that. I think with team sports, one adapts to the people one is competing or playing with,
right?
Whether it's football or whatnot. But with here, one adapts to the natural landscape. So it could be, as you know, being a climber yourself, it could be the wall, the type of rock.
Right.
It could be the conditions of that day, the moisture, heat. Same with the ocean. So I find that also like a really fascinating aspect of outdoor sports.
Yeah, no, that is so true. And interesting. I haven't really thought about that before, but that is so true. We end up adapting to nature through the sport itself. Yeah, through the activity itself. Yeah. You and I talked
a few weeks ago for a little bit, and you spoke a little bit about sort of your, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you can redirect this question, but a little bit of your journey into finding an identity, within a different country and culture, and kind of how sport or your activities played into that.
Certainly, yes, that is a good question, something that I think about now and then.
Mm-hmm.
I will try to articulate this to the best I can. It is
Okay.
close to my heart.
Hmm.
Yes, I came to this country as a young, wide-eyed student, leaving my
Yeah.
family behind.
Yeah.
Many of my misconceptions about this country were misconceptions. I found
Mm.
America to be a beautiful country full of amazing people. I was still a little different though. My
Yeah.
my roots were different. The kind of food I ate was different. I was fluent in the language spoken here, fortunately, having grown up kind of bilingual. But again, the idioms, the nuances, the
Mm-hmm.
holidays, all of them were different.
Yeah.
These outdoor sports allowed me to bond with other practitioners.
Yeah.
So the place I learned to climb with was this little town, which is centered around the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this
Mm-hmm.
climbing area called the New River Gorge.
Oh
I first
yeah.
went there as part of a whitewater rafting trip.
Wow.
When I used to live in North Carolina, and
Mm-hmm.
then discovered climbing, and this is back in 2004. So in some
Mm-hmm.
respect, this could be like an outlying place. It's a small
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
place historically where people would mine coal. That's the
Sure.
primary form of income. But then in the last couple of decades, it also became a center for outdoor recreation.
Mm-hmm.
So I started going there. I still looked different than most people,
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody was white and
Mm-hmm.
from the South, but I
Yeah.
was immediately accepted there, I think.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
was able to relate to these people because all of us were called to the mountains with the same passion, with the same
Yeah.
drive. And that really helped me find a home
Yeah.
and an identity because I didn't have to pretend to be somebody different. I didn't have
Right.
to pretend to enjoy certain things that I didn't. I could
Yeah.
be completely myself and I could
Yeah.
exult in the outdoors
Yeah.
and be silly and goofy with other people I met. So it has been a huge part of my acclimation in
Yes.
the US.
Yeah. That gives me goosebumps and a little teary-eyed. It's just
Oh,
kind of like, well, it's just that's such a really meaningful and heartfelt experience. And I love that idea of activity and nature, the outdoors, bringing people together. And I think when those of us who participate in those things, obviously your story is an extreme coming from another country, but even within, someone who lives here becoming part of that outdoor activity or outdoor sport culture, you really are able to find a sense of belonging, a sense of who you are. And to your point, it's like nothing else about you really matters because you have that one thing in common and you all kind of experience that activity and nature in the same way. It's very uplifting. Yeah. So that's neat. That's neat.
100% true. Yes, it allows us, I think, like you said earlier, when one is fully present in the moment
Yeah.
and does something bringing one whole self, it makes us colorblind, language
Yeah.
blind, culture
Yeah.
blind.
Yeah, so true. That makes me think about climbing travels overseas and places where, someone you don't speak the language and yet, you're with a group of climbers at a crag and somehow you end up being able to communicate in different ways or you're cheering that person on who doesn't speak your language or whatever it is. Those are really special moments to experience in life. There really is a sense of belonging, deep belonging in those moments. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I'll shift gears a little bit here. Are you comfortable talking about some injuries that you've experienced and you're recovering from? And I only bring it up because, my listeners, your listeners tend to be a little older and in a good way, but, would maybe be interested in hearing some things about how do we keep our movement going, our activities going when we are injured? How do we deal with it mentally, emotionally?
Yeah, happy to share what I can.
Yeah. So where are you at right now? Like,
Okay, yeah,
because you had mentioned it
certainly.
last time, but I don't know details about, if you're recovering or what you're having to do. And
Certainly, yes. So the backstory is I used to think I was pretty fit, and
Mhm.
I would, go out and push myself as much as I could. I would be the first person at the climbing wall. I would be the person who wanted to stay the longest. We would joke that if you don't have your headlamps on when you're hiking out, you haven't had a full day. So I thought I could push myself as much as I could. And
Yeah.
somewhere in my early mid 30s, I started getting some niggling things. I think elbow stuff. I started getting some shoulder issues, some knee issues. Fast forward a few years, I had one injury, distinct one. One is I hurt my wrist with my surfboard.
Mm.
And then again, I was climbing in Yosemite trying this track, and I fell on my shoulder. So I had a couple of distinct things.
Yeah.
Those, at that point, I did physio. I did some basic things, rest, physio, etc., changed some modalities. I was able to continue doing those things, climbing, surfing. All of that came to a standstill about a year ago when I had an episode with my left shoulder. And it's funny enough, I was on a bouldering trip in the mountains in India, and I came back and my shoulder was really complaining. I took this massage, and this person giving me this massage, he thought he could cure me. So he was manipulating my shoulder in these painful ways. I was like, you know what? That's the price you pay for mobility. So I let him have it.
Right.
The next day, my shoulder was worse. Went and saw the doctor, and I was actually in India. Saw the doctor, saw a couple other people, put me through the grind of MRIs and X-rays and all of those. Turned out I had bad arthritis.
Oh,
So
shoot.
what had happened, and this is theory, it's hard to sometimes know exactly when things went off the script, but the injury that I suffered earlier with my labrum and my rotator cuff, they got torn.
Oh, yeah.
And because of this repetitive kind of stress I put my shoulder through with overhead sports, in my case, climbing and surfing, they did not help things. And perhaps maybe in hindsight, if I had gotten, let's say, more invasive work done, they could have arrested some things. But at this point,
Hard to
it
know.
is just, it is just, it's kind of bad. Like the osteoarthritis is kind of bad. I also did something which in hindsight was a mistake. I got a PRP procedure done when I was in India. It's an expensive procedure. I think it's been happening for many years, but maybe some people think it's experimental. That was the worst.
Really?
It wrecked my shoulder. I don't know what it was, but
shoot.
yeah, it was. I mean, I experienced pain. If on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 means basically you're gonna die, it was like an 8 or a 9.
Oh,
So
yeah. Miserable.
I got the PRP for like a week. I couldn't move my shoulder, and I am still like, that was like 8 months ago. My shoulder still feels traumatized from that PRP procedure.
I bet.
So anyway, long story, but at this point, I've been doing intensive rehab for the 6 months, the last 6 months. My life these days is wake up, an hour of rehab, go to bed, an hour of rehab to try to get as much function back. The alternative would have been to do something as extreme as a shoulder replacement.
Right. That's major.
Because I want to be able to continue doing things I enjoy. So stopping climbing, stopping surfing, those are not options.
Yes,
and
I understand.
I'm told I'm too young to replace my shoulder.
Yeah.
So at this point, I just believe that the rehab and just mind over body, whatnot, will help me get back on track.
Are you still able to surf, to climb? Like, can you still do some of that?
I haven't tried surfing, but I have just started getting back into climbing.
Okay. Yeah.
I started going to the climbing gym about 2 months ago. trying to keep it, what they call zone 2 to
Yes.
some level. And
Yeah.
then this past weekend, I actually went outside after a long gap.
Wow.
It felt very wholesome. It
Oh,
felt
yeah.
affirming that to be able to use one's body in the way one is
Yeah.
accustomed to, and
Yeah.
yourself and many of your listeners would know, if one gets a certain level of joy
Yeah.
out of movement, and that is taken away, one
Oh, yeah.
can kind of feel a little bit lost. So I was
Absolutely.
really glad to have been able to go back outside. I felt really great. So
Yeah. That's
so
wonderful.
hopefully I'll be able to get back to
Yes. Back to what you were doing before. Did you find over these last about 8 months, I think you said, like mentally, emotionally, was that tough? Like, did you have ways of kind of getting through that? Because for any of us who really do find joy in our outdoor activities, when you're shut down with injury, that can be really, really hard mentally and emotionally.
Good question. It was crushing
Mm,
to not be able to be able to have to stop doing these things.
yeah.
I will say that I am 46 now. Had this happened maybe a decade ago,
Mm-hmm.
I would have taken it. It would have been worse. I think I have learned a few things over the years. I've had setbacks,
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
it's made me stronger. So when
Mm,
this latest thing happened, I think I was more prepared.
yeah.
In a funny way, it's also been a time of growth for me, because I was not able to rely on the usual things that give me fulfillment, gave me a reason
Yeah.
to wake up and do things. I've had to dig deeper and come up with new ways to find that same contentment out of life. And
Yeah.
I've been able to try and do some new things. This podcast that I started in
Yeah.
January is one of them. It's allowed me
Yeah.
to both creative expression and also connect with the outdoor community.
Yeah.
The podcast was actually born out of my need to find
Mhm.
to find stories and inspiration and education
Mhm.
on people who have been able to continue pushing themselves despite
Yeah.
age, despite injuries, despite other maybe limiting beliefs. And I was like, I can't find answers on how do I cure myself. And I was
Yeah.
like, I couldn't find podcasts or information on sources online. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start my own podcast, and I'm going to start
That's awesome.
talking to all these uber seasoned athletes.
Yeah. You have some awesome interviews, that's for sure.
So that's really been this period of learning and growth.
Yeah, that's really neat and inspiring because, I'm thinking about times I've been injured and you're sitting out and you can go one of two ways, right? Like you really can go down a very dark hole pretty easy. Well, I could have anyway, pretty easily, and maybe at times did. But then making a decision to go the other way where you do figure out some growth and some learning and maybe these new opportunities that wouldn't have come your way if the injury hadn't been there, and really figuring out it's a little bit, I mean, metaphorically, it's a little bit what life's all about. There's always ups and downs, and figuring out how to use those low points to move further in a different direction. Yeah, that's that's good. Good job keeping your mental and emotional stuff in check.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what about just practical things? What do you do? So you're 46, you have some injuries, but you continue, to want to and do press on with your climbing and your surfing. You're doing a lot of physical therapy right now. Do you have specific training that you do or that you think about doing in order to really optimize yourself in your sport?
Training as it relates to my rehab or other.
Or just, I'm thinking about with your climbing to be able to, do it for as long as you can possibly do it. Like, yeah, do you have specific training that you do for that?
Yeah, I can answer that in a more general way, and then we
Yeah.
can narrow it down.
Sure.
Yeah, I've learned a lot of things about training over time. I tend to geek out a little bit. Climbing is a newer sport in some ways compared to many. There's not as much money in it,
Yeah.
so the
true.
science is a bit more primitive.
It's new.
But
Yeah.
I'm sure you as well, we follow certain, let's say, sports science savants, certain
Right.
athletes. So I would say that some of the things that I have learned is, I would say number one is focusing on weaknesses.
Yeah.
So being intentional with the time one spends training. I know that my background is with sport climbing, which is this longer, let's say, more endurance-based kind of climbing. So I already have a broad base of fitness. I can climb routes. I can hang on to overhanging big holes we call jugs, but I don't have a lot of power. So I need to focus on building power. So when I go train at the gym, I try to focus on those elements. Train for power, train for dynamic movement. I would say that's one. The second thing I would say is reducing the volume. I think there are certain myths about training that get debunked. One of them being that one needs to keep up a certain amount of volume. One might,
I agree.
but that all depends on one's climbing or sports history. Because I have that base already built, I can get back to a certain level pretty quickly. So I reduce the volume now. I don't climb as much. Also, life's demands also keep me away. I don't have as much time as I used to be able to climb all the time. So I think it works well. Where the time I spend now training, it is focused towards really pointing out what my most glaring needs are. And I would say the third thing could be being more project specific. So instead of, other sports have seasons where, let's say, I don't know, we have the Olympics this year, right? So I'm sure that there are athletes around the world preparing for that sort of that peak performance period. And I think the same should apply to some of our lifestyle sports. If you have a big climbing trip coming up, if you want to go climb either a 513 something or climb El Cap, then one should plan based with that in mind. Not only does it help one periodize one's physical training, I think it also helps one plan and get ready mentally. I think that psych one has for that goal, as you know, being an athlete yourself, I think it helps us optimize our time and push through. I would say one other thing I should really add is the time one does spend training, even if the timing is reduced, one needs to really try hard.
I agree.
And I have to learn that lesson over and over. It's not like,
Same.
You finish a training session, you're like, I feel tired, I feel sore, I should just go and make myself a meal. I mean, really, did you try as hard as you could have? So I think that's also a lesson.
I think that, all of those are great. That one, the last one you talked about, that has been where I have had to do the most work as well, to where like I have to even stay away. Like I have to move my phone so I'm not checking my phone, because I would do things like you're doing your little training stuff and then there's the phone, so I'm checking my phone and all of a sudden 6 minutes goes. It's just, so I've had to do little tricks to make myself focus and try hard, and actually in the moment of training really be thinking about, okay, what muscles am I activating here? What is my goal? Like literally have to think about it in the moment. Anyway, that's practice. That takes practice. So yeah. But it's helpful.
Yeah. It's both recruiting your body for sure, but then also somewhat being really observant.
Yeah, right.
And intentional with how one is using one's fingers, one's feet, one's body, one's center of gravity.
Yeah, all those things. What about do you use a specific diet to help with, like, do you eat a certain way to help with training or performance or recovery?
The diet, and I would say that I have some core principles that I live with, but I could fine tune it further. I would say Yeah,
All
okay.
of us
Core
could.
things. I gave up eating meat about 7 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, okay. So I grew up mostly vegetarian. And then once I came to the US for grad school, my parents joke that I started eating meat with a vengeance. So I ate a lot of meat. But then, I don't know, maybe wiser sense of whatnot prevailed. And yeah, I stopped eating meat mostly for environmental and animal rights reasons.
Right.
But then, incidentally, I think there are benefits to not eating meat. So today, I would say 90% veganish,
Okay.
with
Yeah.
a little bit of seafood thrown in, maybe a couple times a month. And as far as mostly plant based,
Gotcha.
and I end up preparing a lot of my own meals. Maybe I'm a little bit picky about what I eat. I
Right.
prepare a lot of my meals. I tend to follow some basic principles with managing my daily food intake. I try to not eat a heavy meal late at night.
Yeah.
I try to maintain like a certain ratio between, let's say the building blocks between proteins, carbs, and fats. And I feel that as long as I eat the right foods, those ratios automatically
They fall into place.
they follow the they follow the science.
Yeah, that's good. And do you feel like, has that changed as you've aged? Like, do you notice, I don't know, that fueling maybe for a climbing session or a surfing session, has that changed at all getting older?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I'm definitely very sensitive now to what I eat,
Yeah, me too.
especially some reason what I eat at night. If for no other reason that I really hate feeling gross in the morning after like
the food hangover.
after some like obscene dinner, So
Right,
yes.
right.
So
Yes.
I tried to. So that has certainly changed. I think when I was younger, eat anything, anytime, and I know that I'm
you can just,
active.
you
I
can get away with
will.
it.
Yeah, I will not have an issue. I do think, though, that being very active in my 20s has helped me maybe develop, in some respects, a higher metabolism as compared to some of my other friends who were not as active when they were younger.
Right.
So I don't have an issue with being able to eat slightly larger portions and being able to digest them fairly efficiently.
Yeah.
I'm just a little bit careful about the times when I do eat.
Got it.
And also a little bit careful about just not eating a lot of like fried food,
Right.
things like that.
Yeah, like the icky oils and things like that. I do think it's interesting. I've had the same experience, like, and I think most people have. It's sort of like when you're younger, you can kind of get away with so much with food, and as we age, and like the audience who is listening, I mean, I know they'll all understand this too. It does just shift and change. It's like what worked back then in our 20s, it really does change over time, and just that importance of paying attention and changing things up in order to feel a lot more optimal so that you can live this very vibrant, healthy life, whether you're, you have a sport that you love or not, just being able to have that daily energy and all those things. So and I agree that if I eat a big meal late into the evening and go to bed, I mean, that is probably the worst. It's like a hangover the next day. So I don't know. Not
I
fun.
mean, I have certainly made some maybe tall claims, but I am not. I'm not averse to eating that, big bowl of ice cream or a big thing of popcorn late at night. I slip.
It happens.
I slip all the time.
Yeah, totally. We all do. Mine are usually cookies. So yeah, for sure. It's just I think it's so about I mean, I don't like using the word moderation because that gets thrown around all the time, but it's really about being able to have I mean, food is there to be enjoyed as well, and having those moments where you enjoy it. I think if you're mindful of it and really enjoying it, then that's great. You just, as I feel personally, as I get older, I just can't do it as often as I would kind of like to do it. So I just have to be mindful and monitor that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would also like to add again, I have never really practiced any intense diets. Never. I've been lucky, I think. But I think eating well and eating healthy is a long game. And I think the work, let's say, quote unquote, work I put in when I was younger in being active, whatnot, I think that's what allows me to continue being somewhat carefree,
Yeah.
with what I eat, because
Yeah.
I think my body has maybe settled into like some sweet spot where as
Totally.
long
That's
as I'm able
awesome.
to, just press on the throttle just a little bit, just so keep
Yeah.
moving and whatnot, I think it can
Yeah.
keep cruising.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know for how long, but for now, I think I've been able to enjoy
Yeah.
just eating well and
Yes.
being able to thrive.
Yeah, I think too, if you are eating overall pretty nutrient dense foods, so you're fueling your body with lots of nutrients, I think then you can, what do you want to say, like get away with maybe some other things that aren't so nutrient dense. I think if your body has the nutrients, it's working well, it's humming along so it can handle other things. So these are all theories. I don't know.
One other thing I could maybe add is that,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, myself included, can be so, let's say, careful,
Yeah.
to the point of extreme when we are cooking at home,
Yeah.
right? So we're like,
Yeah.
oh, I will only add so much oil to my
Mm.
food, or only eat,
Mm-hmm.
so much pasta or whatnot. But I think the real culprit, I think, is eating out.
Yeah.
Because when you eat out,
Yeah.
the chefs at most places are not
Yeah.
optimizing food for health benefits. I think they're
Absolutely.
optimizing them for taste, so you keep coming back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would rather cheat at home
I
and
agree.
eat all the good, add all the good fats and all of those things,
Right.
so that I am more inclined to eat at home
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it tastes so good, rather
Yeah. And
than
you don't.
like think myself that, oh yes, I'm eating at home, and this is like some sort of penance I have to
Right.
pay. And then
Right.
when I go out, I'm consuming like buckets of, I don't know.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great point. And I think you're right. I know when I'm working with people, if I can get that piece of their lifestyle to shift a little bit, there's huge results, whether they're looking to drop some weight or just feel better, more energy. I work with a lot of people who just want more energy. And yeah, if we can help them shift their lifestyle to where they are eating more at home, and like you said, wonderful, good filling foods, that can change a lot. So yeah.
One final thing I might add is I tend to buy whatever I want at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Somehow eating, I'm sure that's a whole other conversation, but buying groceries in this country as relative to other countries, and as relative to eating out in the US also, is so much cheaper. So I think when I go to a grocery store, I
Wow.
try to buy high quality ingredients, high
Yeah.
quality fruits and vegetables, high quality pantry items. Because again, if I buy good stuff, it's fun to cook with them. It's fun to eat them.
Exactly.
And then when you
Yeah.
go out, you might pay more money, but
Right.
and they're certainly not using the highest quality ingredients.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point too. What about do you think about as you age into the future, do you have any specific sort of thoughts on, like, do you have kind of a structure for how you think about aging well into the future?
Just a quick interruption to tell you about 5 Strands at home intolerance tests. These are home testing kits, and they are a very affordable option for adults and kids to help you uncover common food and environmental intolerances. This is different than allergy testing. 5 Strands tests for food intolerances, not allergies. So these food and intolerance home testing kits include packages for food ingredients, environmental items, minerals, and nutrition. And you can buy the kits individually, or you can purchase the health and wellness package to receive all of the standard testing kits for adults and children. The testing results, what they do is they provide you with an elimination guideline to remove foods that may be causing unwanted symptoms, things like headaches, digestive issues, bloating. And so, we all have foods that can be causing inflammation like this in the body. And 5 Strands has helped many people figure out exactly what foods to eliminate for an elimination diet so that you're not just guessing what foods are making you feel terrible or not so good. And remember, an elimination diet is meant to be temporary and not forever. So you can use 5 strands to know how to start your elimination diet. And then once you start feeling better, you can start to add back in the offending foods slowly into your diet. So just a reminder, elimination diet is not meant to be forever. So if you think this is something that might be helpful for you where you're at on your health and wellness journey, you can go to 5strands.com, and that's the number 5. So the number 5strands.com, and enter my name as your discount code. So, when you get to the checkout, there'll be a box for a discount code, and you just enter my name, Heather Heynen. And Heynen is spelled Heynen. It's all one word, no spaces. So use my name as your discount code at checkout, and you'll get a really nice discount.
Interesting question. Yeah, I think the term structure is important. I think I haven't been a very structured person for most of my life. I think a lot of people would describe me as happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
But I think some of these reckoning moments I've had with injuries the last couple of years have forced me to think about this. Also, I started this podcast.
I know. I was thinking about
and
that. Yeah.
I'm so inspired by all these people that are coming on to share some of their wisdom.
Yeah.
So structure-wise, I think it is broadly to shift a few things. So one is goal setting. I don't set long-term goals. So I think I have started doing that. I have also shifted or starting to shift my overall lifestyle into areas where I feel I will bring out my gifts. And this goes beyond athletics. It goes back to, what do I do for a living? How do I spend my day? And the people I surround myself with. Somehow in the last few years, one question which I think a lot about, which maybe many listeners of your show and my show as well do, what is the message I'm leaving behind?
Yeah. Legacy.
And so I use some of that to guide what I do. I want to be able to keep doing things I love. I think for me, that is a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I also think a lot about giving back. And I feel I've been lucky that I've learned so much from many people. I continue to do that. And how is it that I can give back, reciprocate, teachers, help reduce, let's say, differences in access to the outdoors for people coming from different backgrounds? How do I encourage people to continue living to their fullest as they get older? I think those are some important things I think about. And I think if I do those well, right, to benefit others, I think the benefits I get back to myself are like manifold.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. I think it sounds like you are in a very accepting and peaceful place with aging, and that you also understand that idea of maybe a little deeper meaning behind life in regards to leaving legacy and teaching. I think when you're in that space, it's such a inspiring and just really beautiful place to be in life. I think it's easier then to also be in the present moment more often and just enjoy life on a daily basis. Those are all great things. Is there anything else that you want to add that maybe I didn't ask about, or anything else you want to tell us about the podcast?
One other thing I would like to add to the last point is what you just said relates to acceptance.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to accept, but not be resigned.
Love that.
And
Yes.
I think one needs to continue fighting and striving for one's best output.
Yeah.
So the podcast is super exciting. I am so inspired by the guests. And so the genesis of the podcast, like I said, is to uncover these stories of elite level outdoor athletes all over the world there are many incredible people around us who are doing extraordinary things.
They really
And
are.
I thought a light needs to be shown on them. And
Yeah.
they have so much to teach us, to inspire us. There are also little secrets that people have, the way people maintain their bodies, the way people change their diets. I have spoken with, for example, I spoke with, I think the oldest person on my podcast, Lee Shefkel, who at 77 climbs 512. So he climbed at the 90th percentile. And
It's amazing.
he has relentlessly experimented with his diet and his training. And there's so much for us to learn. The focus of media, the focus of education always seems to be on the youth.
Yeah.
People who are still early, still peaking.
Right.
Most of us, the world is aging. We are all getting older. But if the message we get is getting old is stopping things we love because our body and our mind has, let's say, receded, I think that is absolutely untrue. We stop doing things because we are told we cannot do those things. So that is the core premise of the podcast. And yes, we have people from, I've guessed, from their late 30s to the 70s. Yeah. And one of the surprising things that I'm learning, many things coming out, is many of them did not peak until their 50s.
Yeah. Yeah.
I spoke with, for example, I spoke with Megan Canfield, who is an ultra runner. She runs 100-mile plus marathons. She continues to excel.
It's amazing,
in her age category, but in the overall pool of runners, she did not hit her fastest times until her 50s.
Yeah, I love that.
The friends we have in common, Chuck and Maggie Odette, they climb in the 99th percentile. Yeah, and they are in their upper 60s. And
he is, yeah.
He is.
She's in her mid 50s,
totally.
lower to mid 50s.
So Chuck is upper 60s, Maggie is low 50s.
Yeah.
One other interesting thing that came to light is many of them did not even start their sports until their 40s.
Right.
So, for example, I spoke to this guy who runs these marathons doing run art. He didn't start running until his mid 40s.
It's amazing.
So the other lesson I'm getting here is it's never too late to start.
It's never too late
if you find something amazing, if it really calls out to you, go out and start doing it.
Yeah, agree.
The last thing I'm learning, which is true for me, perhaps true for you also, is when we undertake activities where the process of learning is joyful, one will eventually succeed.
Yeah.
And in my life, I know it's been with climbing, with surfing. I do a little bit of dancing on the side. For none of them, I was a natural. I sucked for a long time, but I had so much fun doing those things, taking classes, getting out and, getting crunched by the waves. And, but trying hard only because it was fun. I don't know. My message to everybody is, hey, find something fun, because if it's fun, chase the fun, you're likely to stick with it and you will eventually get good at it.
Yeah, that's such a great message. And it's so true. It's so true. Yeah. So I just want to send all my listeners over to your podcast, which is called The Ageless Athlete. I listen, I'm a subscriber, and I recommend all my listeners do the same because it's incredibly inspiring. It's all the things you just said. In every episode I've listened to, I've been inspired. I've learned practical things as well, like you talked about with training or food or things like that. But overall, it gives such a sense of it is this inspiring push to go do the thing. I mean, every episode has been that. And so I just really recommend to everyone listening out there to go give it a listen. And Kush, thank you so much for being here and just sharing your inspiring life journey with us, as well as some of the practical stuff you told us about. And I do look forward to talking to you again soon.
It's been wonderful coming on your show, Heather, and thank you so much. Yeah, thank you to your listeners. Yeah, go check out Ageless Athlete, any of your podcast apps.
Yes, and also, where can people find you and follow you?
Sure. So my Instagram handle is Ageless Athlete Podcast.
Perfect.
I'm guessing your show notes will have that link.
Yes, I will link all that stuff. Yes.
And I also started a YouTube channel recently, so you'll have to search for Ageless Athlete Podcast, the whole thing.
Okay.
I would say those would be, anytime, any questions, DM me. I'm available. Love to connect with other great listeners you have, and happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thanks again, Kush. We will talk soon.
Thank you.
Did you know you can find a lot more help from me on my website? Go to heatherheynen.com. Heynen is spelled Heynen, and there you will find links to my online courses, how I work with clients one-on-one, as well as online with my coaching and counseling services that I offer. The information in this podcast is intended to provide a broad understanding and knowledge of healthcare topics. This information is for educational purposes only and should not be considered complete and should not be used in place of advice from your physician or healthcare provider. We recommend you consult your physician or healthcare professional before beginning or altering your personal exercise, diet, or supplementation program.